Let's bring in Hagar Chemali. She is the host of Oh My World on YouTube and the former spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the UN. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let's start out with the latest in the fighting inside Ukraine, the state of peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. We just heard Richard sort of give his assessment there. Do you think the Ukrainians are gaining more strength at the negotiating table? Each day they're able to hold on to their key cities. Do you think we could see a breakthrough in peace talks if that keeps up?
Well, typically when you're fighting a dictator like Putin, and it's the same, I learned these lessons when I handled Syria, time is not usually on the side of the defender. It's usually on the side of the aggressor because they have no regard for civilian life. When it comes to Putin and the Russian military, they don't care if they fight until the last man standing. And you see that. And Richard Engel, I thought, summed it up so well when he said that under any other circumstances, this would be called terrorism. I'm going to go out and call it terrorism because the definition of terrorism is targeting innocent civilians to achieve a political or ideological goal. And that is exactly what Putin is doing. Unfortunately, my experience in Syria only taught me that dictators don't stop. They fight until they can try to walk away with a win. Things will get much worse. And the dictator is never at risk of falling. The thing that gives me hope here, because I don't want to bring everybody down, but the thing that gives me hope here are two things at the same time that are happening that we have to bolster, we, the Europeans and NATO have to bolster at the same time, which are on one hand, how strong and united the Ukrainian resistance is. And obviously the latest package of military aid is very strong. Anti-aircraft systems, Switchblade drones. Switchblade drones are things that crash into their target and explode. These are really strong items. That's really great. I personally don't see why we don't give the Ukrainian military the MiG fighter jets that they want. But all of it is building up because that military threat is the most important while those negotiations happen at the same time. And so I think it's great that those negotiations are happening. I would never trust Russia to hold a ceasefire, as Richard mentioned. But I do think we need to help President Zelensky in thinking through the options to give Putin something to step back.
Let's talk about a new important layer here, which is China's potential involvement or what we could see happen from the Chinese president. So President Biden is expected to talk with China's President Xi this morning. Now, we know Russia had asked them for this assistance. I think we're all expecting that Biden is going to denounce that. But is there a chance here that we could see the opposite, rather than assistance from Russia, this relationship between Putin and Xi mean that there's the potential there for pressure to end this from the Chinese end?
I think that the most realistic thing we can hope for from China is that they don't help Russia, but not necessarily that they get involved to pull Putin back. And the reason is because Xi himself has his own eyes on Taiwan. And he's watching very closely to see how the world is reacting to Russia invading its neighbor, to see how the world might react if he were to invade his neighbor. And so but President Xi, the difference between President Xi and President Putin is that he plays the long game, and he always has. And so while the world is communicating to President Xi, you are either with all of us, with Ukraine, or with Russia, President Xi is trying to look for a third path and trying to see, okay, maybe I could not come out so publicly, but I'm also not going to throw my friend Putin under the bus. And he's trying to pursue that. And Biden today in his call is going to say something along the lines of, you can't go do that. Like I said, the best we can hope for is that he doesn't proactively help Putin. He already is pretty much by allowing Russian propaganda to move through China and so on. He cannot give military equipment and support and aid. And I think that the thing that President Biden should hit, and I believe he will, is the threat of economic sanctions. And I think you're going to see if Congress passes a bill allowing secondary sanctions, which are sanctions that allow the U.S. to sanction those doing business with a sanctioned target. Right. Sorry, that's a lot of words used with sanction in them. But that allows the U.S. to increase the pressure more and the threat. And China cares about that threat because their economic power is what gives them this influence that they exert around the world.
And Hagar, very quickly, I want to kind of follow up on that. When we talk about sanctions toward Russia, do you think there is more the U.S. and our allies could be doing to punish Russia, keep the pressure on them to try and stop this?
These sanctions are really unprecedented. I mean, and I worked at Treasury and sanctions for many years, and they are the toughest I've ever seen. And not because of the specific options they pursued, but because Russia's such an active player in international trade and such an active participant in the international financial system that there's a real opportunity there to freeze assets and block billions and trillions of dollars of trade. And that's what they're doing. There's always more. Always, when it comes to sanctions, there's always more you can do. There are more sectors in Russia you could target. You could target the timber sector, the aluminum and steel sector. Mm-hmm. You could target more Russian political officials. But I want to stress that what we've done already, preventing them from accessing their foreign reserves abroad, sanctioning Putin and the oligarchs, going after the oil and gas sector, these are the biggest things. And now it's mostly about enforcement, finding those hidden assets and exposing them, helping Europe decrease its consumption of Russian oil and gas, stuff like that.
Hagar, thank you so much. We so appreciate your perspective and walking us through all that. Good to see you.